Looks like he arrived at 151:46.
Officer Villalobos.
Villalobos. So that was Alejandro.
I'm sorry, Alejandro. I'm sorry. Okay. Now. It is 151. Now, Officer Thompson and Officers Villalobos, they were in the same patrol unit, right?
Yes, sir.
What is their, find their call sign, and tell me what time the IDR says they arrived.
351 Tango. Looks like it shows here at 2:27:08.
The IDR shows they arrived on scene at 2:27.
08.
Could you, for a moment, I want you to publish Officer Villalobos' body cam. States Exhibit 3. Zip forward. So, just pause. And let it play on, see when they get out of the unit.
You'll leave out there. He is all right.
Pause. And so for the record, we've had States Exhibit 3, which has been published. Officer Villalobos and his partner are on ground at 01:47:09, but the document, the automated document, shows they don't arrive until what time?
2:27:08.
Those type of errors, have you seen them happen in your career with SAPD and the documents automated systems?
Oh, yes, sir, they have.
And it's, did anybody do anything wrong? Is it just a glitch?
It's just a glitch, sir.
Did that, when you were earlier asked about Officer Salinas's first segment of his body cam, who is it that downloads Officer Salinas's body cam?
He would have downloaded it.
Okay. Did some neurons get crossed so it didn't get saved with this case?
Yes, sir. Something happened.
He has no expertise in the computer system, how Axon uploads or downloads. He's not qualified. He hadn't made a predicate for him to know. And he said he doesn't know where that segment is. He doesn't know that it was, they failed to tag it and that it's still in the system somewhere. So he can't testify.
All right, Officer Swain.
Great. I'll just ask the question. Did you do anything to mislabel when Officers Thompson and Villalobos arrived by the IDR document?
No, sir.
Did you do anything, aside from not finding it, to cause Officer Salinas's first segment to not be retained?
No, sir.
I'll move on.
I would object to his characterization that it was not retained because he doesn't know that it was not retained. So I'd ask that to be stricken.
All right, I'll overrule.
But we know that Officer Villalobos is on the ground at 01:47.
Yes, sir.
Now, the jury has seen testimony that on or about 1:51, Sergeant Flores engaged with Melissa Perez. It's right before Officer Alejandro arrived.
Yes, sir.
And was seen and published that on or about 1:53 is when Officer Villalobos jumps the rail to the patio. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
And what does Melissa Perez do when Officer Villalobos jumps the rail and approaches a window?
And she goes right there. She goes right to the window.
And do you recall at about 1:55, several officers are conferring with Sergeant Flores and they're talking tactics?
Yes, sir.
There's Officer Thompson there, you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And Officer Villalobos says that she was ready to fight me.
Yes.
Do you recall that? Is he referring to her reaction when he approached the rail?
Yes, sir.
And then approximately (1:57). That's Officer Villalobos' statement. Go to approximately Villalobos. Yeah, it's already admitted State's Exhibit. No, I'm sorry, his video, his body worn camera. States 3. I want to go to approximately 1:57:49.
Where she stays there without reaching for the hammer? The door's unlocked.
Yeah, they just leave. We're trying to get here with this. That's
Okay.
it.
I was gonna say, 'cause if that was the case, I could just open the door and grab her. If she doesn't go for the hammer right away, I can just go and tap
Where's the
her.
hammer that we need?
It's on the couch. It's a good bit away from her. She won't have enough time to get it if she stays at the door. But whatever y'all want to roll with. I'm just saying I can get her from
get you.
opening the door.
And we know that it's open because she.
I unlocked it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you to come out and
I was
help
able to
me.
reach in, I was able to unlock it.
Okay?
I don't need to talk to somebody who's tearing my door down and harassing me and yelling.
Well, I didn't tear your door down. I
I'm
just
telling you that
got
I need his space along with mine and then tearing my screen door. So that's harassment.
So the conversation between Officer Villalobos and Sergeant Flores. What happens as a result of that conversation?
Judge, I'm gonna object. This is cumulative. I don't know how many times he's played this video and other videos where the same conversation is played out, and also how many times the jurors have seen the same conduct play out. This is cumulative, repetitive, and not relevant. It's not going to further the inquiry. All this is doing is trying to rehash testimony.
Your Honor, after approximately 12 hours of cross-examination, I'm simply going back to the state's theory and the approach and the plan as it was executed.
And the approach in the plan is not relevant to the issue of justification. Tactics and approach in the plan does not vitiate Chapter 9 of the Penal Code of inherent danger, because the plan happened 10-15 minutes before the alleged conduct, and use of force is fluid. They cannot say that the tactics caused Ms. Perez to use illegal deadly force against the officers, and the courts have never said that there's a concept called officer-created danger or bad tactics.
Your Honor, and I have not used the term Mr. Flores just cited. I note that this plan appears to have changed 4 minutes, correction, 2 minutes, no, I was wrong, 4 minutes before the plan is executed. It goes to the totality of the circumstances about the plan and the results.
And the totality of circumstances does not relate to the plan. The totality of circumstances relates to the officer's decision to use force. So he's misstating what the law is and what the definition of totality of circumstances is. And again, we assert this is cumulative, repetitive, and doesn't further be inferred in any shape, form, or fashion.
It goes
And
direct.
the court has discretion to control the mode of interrogation, and when the matter becomes cumulative, the court can cut short the testimony elicited.
And again, Your Honor, I am moving towards, again, totality of circumstances, and it goes directly to what we understand to be the claim, self-defense, and the paragraphs within that statute.
All right, I'm looking at the question that was asked, State. I'll let you rephrase your question.
Can I have a readback question before the objection?
1 second. Question. And so the conversation between Officer Villalobos and Sergeant Flores, what happens as a result of that conversation?
So, after Officer Villalobos and Sergeant Flores had their conversation, where did the parties move? What position did they move to?
I think right after that they went toward the, I can't remember if they met, if Flores met with the other sergeant at that point or not. I think that's when they moved toward the railing.
Okay, and who specifically moved to the rail?
He had Alejandro there, and then Villalobos and Sergeant Flores.
Okay. Was Officer Thompson there as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right, and right here. So at 2:01:23 from Officer Villalobos' body cam, what is Sergeant Flores doing here?
It's like he's telling everybody to kind of get back.
What?
That's ridiculous.
I'm asking you what's wrong. What camera?
Is he executing his plan?
Yes, now he's coming up and they're going to execute the plan we talked about.
Cameras rolling.
Where?
Tell me where they're at. That's the reason for the officer who took down my door.
Well, tell me where they're at so we can make sure we get that as evidence.
I got plenty of evidence.
Exactly, and now we'd like to see that because we're in the wrong. And so if we have all this evidence, hold on.
You ain't got.
And for the record, we paused at 02:01:59. Where is Officer Villalobos' position at this point?
He is jumping over the railing at this time.
And what is Melissa Perez doing?
She is right there. She sees him coming, and she's already telling him, stop. So she's already being aggressive, showing her aggression right there.
All right. Do you see her right Can you see where her right hand is?
Yes, sir.
Where is that? Where's her right hand?
It's on top of the TV there, sir.
And what is she doing with her left hand?
She's pointing. She's pointing at Officer Villalobos.
From your vantage point, is she aware of the approach?
Yes,
I'm
she's.
gonna object to speculation as to state of mind of another. This is improper.
I did not ask state of mind, I asked from his vantage of the video. I asked does she appear to be aware?
No, he said, is she aware?
I will rephrase,
You
Your
can
Honor.
rephrase.
And so, and besides, it's an improper question, no matter how it's phrased. And it's irrelevant to the issue of the officers having the lawful right to make an arrest. And there's no need for a warrant, and this issue has already been resolved by the court. And what counsel is trying to do is to suggest that the officer's conduct is illegal, which the court has already instructed jurors to disregard the need for a warrant.
Your Honor, I did not use that term.
Well, that's what he's suggesting, Your Honor, and we would ask that we hash this out outside the presence of the jury, or that counsel be instructed to stop this behavior.
All right, members of the jury, I'm gonna give you a break. We'll let you know when we're ready.
All right for the jury?
Please be seated.
Judge, you do with the 951. We're talking about that. 9.51 in the text.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
This court has already admonished the jury that they shall not consider whether there was a need for a warrant. And I know that Christian and Tom have written down what your instruction was, and they'll better be able to address than me what that instruction was. But essentially, what counsel is trying to do for the state is through the back door violate that instruction by suggesting that their conduct was illegal and they should have gotten a warrant, they should not have made an attempt to an arrest, and by criticizing tactics and through the back door they're trying to argue that the officer's conduct was illegal and this is improper. And when we filed our objection to their experts, we argued before the court that Texas Penal Code section 6.04 deals with causation. And what they're attempting to do is to suggest that the officer's tactics caused Melissa Perez to engage in illegal conduct, and therefore somehow or another that justifies her illegal conduct, and that somehow or another the castle doctrine applies. This is improper and improperly shifts the burden of proof upon the defense and tries to recodify Chapter 9 of justification and impose requirements and limitations that don't exist in Chapter 9. And by attempting to recodify Chapter 9, it's changing the burden of proof, and that is improper because the state has the burden of disproving every defense available to these three defendants. And by changing that burden of proof, by adding extra elements that we have to prove, is improper. And I would ask that my colleagues weigh in on this and explain to the court why it's improper.
Well, I just want to put on the record, Judge, and interject also. Under 9.51, we're talking about the reasonable belief of these police officers. There is no duty to retreat, which they keep trying to bring up with this detective talking about other alternatives, and he thought maybe, what was the driving force? they are not going to get a charge on anything about a driving force or alternative tactics because there is no law to support that. The law of the land is, at the moment the deadly force was required, was it reasonable? That's the only issue. 9.51 talks about the reasonable belief of law enforcement. It's specifically for law enforcement, and it specifically says there is no duty to retreat when somebody's life is in danger. And in this case, it's been all of these officers plus an additional one that were endangered. And now they're trying to circumvent by going into the provocation issue, which the court already said they couldn't get into, when the fact of the matter is that Ms. Perez was the one provoking these officers who were trying to conduct a legal arrest. And so this is just all backdoor. This is so confusing for the jury because there will not be a charge on tactics or alternative measures or anything else this detective wants to dream up at this point. It's prejudicial, it's confusing, and the court has already ruled I don't know how many times on the fact that they cannot try to get into an illegal arrest, and the court has ruled that a warrant was not required.
Your Honor, Mr. Del Prado cites 951. It's arrest and search. It's not defensive person, deadly force, indefensive person. Two different statutes. If they want to rely on 951, as he's citing here, it's not presently in the proposed jury charge. But we welcome it to come in the proposed jury charge. It is more applicable, it's more specific to the facts of this case. But what they're leaning on, what they're arguing for, is 941. 941. And 941.
That's what
I'm sorry.
932.
931 and 932. That's what that they're arguing for. And 931 and 932 contain this provision of you cannot provoke the difficulty. Okay? It says you cannot provoke the confrontation. It's that you can't create your own danger with the pretext of we're going to do this so that she responds in such a way that we can act with deadly force. That's what 931 and 932 say. 941 or 951 that Mr. Del Prado cited doesn't have that provision. And if they want to rely on 951, then we don't get to provoking the difficulty. I understand that. But if they're going to rely on 931 and 932, provoking the difficulty is in there, and we're certainly allowed to, but at least present the facts in such a way to establish whether or not the court will allow an instruction that ultimately based on the facts that you hear.
Judge, if I can respond just briefly, I've talked about this on provoking difficulty. These men have been slandered enough. Provoking the difficulty, and what Mr. Lunan is suggesting, is that they want to try to prove that they provoked her with the intent to shoot and kill her. That's what provoking the difficulty requires. That they were doing this so that they had a justification or an excuse to kill her. So like in the movie Shane, where he throws the gun down at the guy's feet and tells him to pick up the gun, and the second the guy picks up the gun, he shoots him and says, y'all all saw he had a gun. That's provoking the difficulty. But that, the hearts of these men would have to be so black as to do what Mr. Lunan is now trying to accuse them of doing, which is to provoke her, to give them an excuse like they're bloodthirsty to kill her. And it is one of the most overturned issues that we have in our criminal justice system. I am confident that the court will never find that they have presented any evidence that these officers were provoking her so to give them an excuse to kill her. And so I think that because the court knows that that's where they're going, it violates their due process to let them even try to make that argument. They should only be making arguments that they have a good faith basis to believe exist. And I don't know that they've ever said that they have a good faith basis to believe that the hearts of these men were so deplorable and depraved that they were provoking her with the intent to kill her. That's what they were intending to do. They wanted to get her with that hammer next to their head so they had an excuse to shoot her. And it's a slanderous allegation, and there's no good faith basis to believe that. This officer that they're trying to get that through has already testified that they did not have any intent to kill her. They did not have any intent to hurt her, according to him, because he is at least the one thing he has done is treated them like human beings.
and not like monsters. But the state is now treating them like monsters. And that's, I mean, to me, it gets to the point when you have something like this, and provoking the difficulty is such a dangerous thing, that if there is not a shred of evidence of that, then they should not be able to try to present that, because it's not going in this charge. It will not. I know the court will not let it unless the court believes that they've been able to present some evidence that these men were doing that with the intent to kill her. So with that, that's our objection, and we would object to anything further.
And I just want to add one other thing. Well, two actually. Using their logic, provoking the difficulty every time a San Antonio police officer from now on, using the state's argument, goes out to make an arrest, then the defense is going to be able to say, well, you provoked me. You provoked this difficulty by taking me or attempting to take me under arrest. And then the second thing is, I don't know where Mr. Lunan is getting this idea that we're required to pick one provision of Chapter 9 to rely on. The law says we're entitled to rely on any defense that the evidence raises that we're entitled to rely on. So we don't have to say, oh, we're going with this one. I don't know where he's getting this interpretation of the law, but that is certainly not the law. We're entitled in the charge to get a charge on any specific defense that is raised by the evidence.
But just further on Mr. Goss's position, which we all agree with, they have to have, under what the court is saying, every single one of the officers out there in the scene have to be part of this plan to provoke the difficulty. Every single officer is trying to effectuate an arrest here. There's no way it applies to these three men, much less applies to all 15 officers, Judge. It's just insane.
Your Honor, in the video, it's clear on the audio that Sergeant Flores says moments before they go in, he says, if she grabs the hammer, do what you gotta do. Okay? That's not in every provoking the difficulty case where an officer, Sergeant Flores, has already seen how she responds to people trying to enter the apartment multiple times and heard about it. Now, the ones he didn't see, heard about it other times, and knowing exactly how she would respond, generates a plan and tells the officers, essentially, we know what she's going to do. If she grabs a hammer and comes at us, do what you gotta do.
That is so disingenuous.
It's
insane.
Your Honor, they don't like
Hold on,
the
hold on.
fact.
Let's
They
hear-
don't like
let's
and
hear the
it has nothing
state's
to do with
argument.
intent to kill. It has to do with we're willing to shoot her. We're willing to
So
shoot her.
Sergeant
We're willing
Flores
to
should
use
have
deadly
said,
force.
give her a hug. I mean, are we insane? If she would have picked up a knife, a shovel, a gun, do what you have to do. Defend yourself. 932. I mean, David has never made this argument before, Judge.
I've never had officers kill somebody in broad daylight or broad nighttime.
There's never been an officer shooting where someone's passed away. Of course there has been, David. Of course there hasn't been. I mean, we work together. We review cases like that. He knows that. This is a disingenuous argument that I'm shocked that David Lunan is making before this court.
All right, let me hear the state.
Your Honor, again, the evidence that the defense wanted in, it is the jury sees it. There is a discernible pattern. They approach the window. Perez reacts. Numerous times it is played out. In the execution, they pause entry. Would a reasonable officer consider that and adjust the plan that goes into the totality of circumstances? We are literally 10 seconds before the first round's fired. I am simply addressing, under the totality of the circumstances, addressing the plan. That is all I'm doing with this line of questioning and the evidence that is before the jury already.
And Your Honor, this witness has no expertise to comment on tactics. They did not give us notice that he was a tactical expert.
You've identified him.
Since they did not give us notice that he was a tactical expert, he cannot testify about tactics, good or bad, irrespective of the other arguments we've raised. And so this is just a backdoor way to violate the court's instruction to the jury that they shall not consider the need for a warrant. And this is a backhanded way to slip in the back door what the state has already been prohibited from doing.
Your Honor, I have made no such intimation about a warrant. The court has ruled it is very clear. I am looking at and presenting the evidence that is already in front of the jury. I am pointing out what the defendants articulated and mouthed to each other and their execution in the totality of the circumstances. That phrase,
And
it's a fact, Judge. I don't know any other way to drive around it. It is a fact.
and there's missing information to suggest that they know what the plan was is disingenuous because what we see and hear is that the body camera was muted for approximately a minute or so, and so we don't know what was said, and this witness has indicated that he does not know what was
Judge,
said.
I think you know where you're at anyway, Judge. The bottom line is, this officer, this detective, whatever, this testified, he didn't know what the hell was going on, he doesn't know what their intent was. And so they could easily call all these other witnesses, call Maria Salinas, guys, call Dylan, call Thompson, call all of them, call Gomez. They don't want to do that. Why? Because they know the truth. This is disingenuous. I think we know where the court's at, Judge. There's no good faith basis to even make an argument for provoking the difficulty, knowing the case law, but knowing these facts. They're knowing these facts. So we'll reserve our to your judgment, Judge.
All right, I'll let the state make one more, and then I'll rule. I'm giving you an opportunity to make a complete record.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Judge.
Yes. State?
Your Honor, and again, the evidence has been cleared. It's discussed by, in conference with Flores, Thompson, Defendant Villalobos points out she was going to come right at me. It's realized. It is recognized. It is as Mr. Lunan laid out under self-defense in 932, it is there as to inducing her response. As to this officer being, we haven't noticed him as a expert, no, but this issue and this plan was covered in cross with these very lawyers. We note that defense put him on their list as an expert. That's listed in the filings. It said expert. I don't recall it was specific as to what part of the science. He's simple. Again, Judge, under the facts before the jury, I am simply laying out this pause right here. I don't know, would a reasonable officer rethink their approach? That will be for the trier of fact, ultimately, when they get the final charge.
All right, so we've discussed provoking the difficulty ad nauseum, right? I mean, before this line of questioning started, I almost sustained a defense objection to it being cumulative. But we've talked about provoking the difficulty. I'm going to just zero in and I'll sustain Mr. Goss's specific objection.
All right.
Anything else?
Have a moment to.
Yeah, let's take a short break and then we'll bring the jury back.
Porter, could you read back the last question, please?
Judge, I think we objected to that last question, so we would object to it again, get rid of that.
All right, I would, the question before that, I forgot where I was.
1 second.
So, Your Honor, I think I can caught up now to proceed.
Okay.
So, on the still of Officer Villalobos' body cam, what is the time, President?
2:01:59.
And you recall from the body cam, how long has he paused here?
Second.
Two oh one 59. And from your page 57 of your prosecution guide,
Yes, sir.
you look at item 14,
And 14, yes, sir.
and what time are the first rounds fired?
2:02:07, sir.
So, between the first arrival on scene, approximately 01:46,
Sir.
through shots fired, is how much time elapsed?
About 16 minutes.
What is this, and contrast, how much time did you put into your arrest warrant?
I believe we came for like 13 hours.
Judge, I'm gonna object to that misstatement. He said he didn't start working on it until 2:30. And the warrant was signed, 4 hours later, so that's a mistake.
All right, you'll have the ability to cross. State?
Did the work you started when you took the statements, is that included in your warrant?
Yes, sir.
When you started the statements, I recall Officer Alejandro's statement was completed approximately 7:56.
I think 7:36, I think.
7:36. So approximately 15 to 16 hours
Oh,
total time between when you started with the statements and you got to the warrant.
Yes.
That approximately 15 to 16 hours.
16 hours, yes, sir. When it was signed.
cross-examination, you were asked about what defense termed the lack of detail or information in your warrant.
Yes, sir.
Is there a different standard, higher than probable cause, for officers and officer-involved shootings than the regular process for one?
No, sir.
And as an investigator, are the facts that officers knew at the time of the force, is that important to your evaluation?
Yes, sir.
I believe on cross-examination with Mr. Nesbitt, when he went over the factors in the totality of the circumstances, she considered whether or not she cut wires. You recall him asking you that?
Yes, sir.
Along with the time of night for residents, the risk of fire, signs of impairment or aggressiveness, violence. Was she using the environment to conceal weapons or hands? Did she arm herself, her success in throwing objects? Would you consider her response to officers' previous tactics? Would that also be a factor?
Yes, sir.
How old was Ms. Perez at the time of her death?
I don't know. I think she was 39, but I can check. Make sure. Oh, 46. I'm sorry, sir. 46.
What was her size, dimensions? How tall was she?
I don't have it here on this. Let me check right here. Hold on. No, I don't have it on here, sir. Sorry.
Apologize, Your Honor. On cross-examination with Mr. Cifuentes, you used Officer Alejandro. You call that line of questioning?
With, concerning Officer Alejandro?
He literally had him standing up, and he, much as they measured Officer Villalobos' shoulders to establish a approximation of the opening in the window, I recall he, tell me if this is what you remember, said that Officer Alejandro was approximately 5'1" tall.
I thought he said 5 foot, but it could be he said 5
5 foot. And is that approximately Melissa Perez's height?
Yeah, she could be around that height.
We'll stipulate that Sergeant testified to. He can feed the officer whatever he wants to feed him. As far as the dimensions, we'll stipulate to them.
I thank counsel for his grace. No further questions, I will pass the witness.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Detective Soto, you still have Exhibit 1 up there with you, the IDR?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, because I think when you're reading off of that to the jury, you pointed to one notation in the IDR that said white female, I guess sleeveless shirt, cut fire alarm wires, saying she owns the complex, possibly intoxicated.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in your mind, that is a red flag to you that she was suffering from mental health issues.
To me, it's just it's an indication that she could be suffering from mental health.
I mean, it could, but really what it says is possibly intoxicated. So what an officer or somebody reading that would assume first, you would assume, is that the person is intoxicated.
Could possibly be intoxicated, yes, sir.
Because intoxication is, somebody who is severely intoxicated, and you agree that she was.
Yes, sir, she was. Yes.
Very, very drunk.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Somebody who's very, very drunk can say things that don't make sense.
They
right?
can, yes, sir.
Right. They can do things that don't make sense.
Yes, sir.
Right? So, what you were reading in the IDR were literally the words intoxication, not mental health issue, right?
I'm just referring to just saying something like she owns the complex, cut the alarm wires.
Right, but there's nothing to say that she doesn't. I mean, if she owned the complex and got real drunk out there, then she could own the complex and be just really drunk and acting crazy.
There's no indication on that. I didn't say yes, sir.
Well, right. So I guess my point is that would be a pretty poor thing to base your estimation on, that she was suffering from a mental health issue.
Well, just gone to many calls, sir. Seen a lot of key cards like this, and it's just on my experience, that's what I've seen. That's why I would assume that. Yes, sir.
Right, and we determined that you would assume that. You would assume when you saw that she was intoxicated, or possibly intoxicated, and you know now that she was very intoxicated. When you see intoxication, you assume mental health problems.
I know, it's just one of the factors, sir.
This term like "this chick is crazy." I think we've established that there's no way you can tell this jury that Bug said that.
I cannot tell you for sure, sir. No.
Right. Okay. And if you can't tell this jury, and all you can do is make an assumption that he said it, you would agree that that assumption doesn't hold a whole lot of value as to whether or not he said it, right?
Yes, sir, because I can't tell you for sure if he said it. Yes,
Because assumptions don't hold a whole lot of value. You would agree with that?
yes, sir.
All right. So let's take the statement. So let's change it a little bit. This chick is crazy. Now, this chick is crazy drunk, right? Because you could look at somebody who's very intoxicated and go, this chick is crazy, right?
You could, sir. Yes, sir.
This chick is crazy high on meth.
Yes, sir, you could. Yes.
Right, because being high on meth or being very drunk can make you look and act crazy.
Yes, sir. It changes your behavior. Yes, sir.
You know, and I'm using the word crazy not because I'm trying to denigrate anybody with a mental health issue, but I'm using the words that we're talking about that were on the body cam. Okay, you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right, and this chick decided to not take her medicine anymore, and now she's attempting to kill the police officers. Right, like that could be interpreted by maybe one of these officers at the scene as crazy.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you can.
But one thing I want to get down, once and for all, looking at that IDR. Well, let's go to this real quick. Because I think we've talked about the mental health call, but we really haven't defined it yet. So I want to define it. A mental health call, in your understanding, is somebody who's having a mental health issue, and only a mental health issue, and police are being called because they're acting in a way that could be harmful to themselves or others, right?
Yes, sir. They'll tag the call, based on the information they got. They'll tag it if they know for sure. Yes, sir.
Right, they'll tag it as somebody, this is a mental health issue. Now, you agree 100% on that IDR, that there's no tag that says that this is a mental health issue.
No, sir.
Okay, and then you would also agree 100% on the IDR, by the time they got out there, the call was for an officer in trouble.
Yes, that's what they were responding to. Yes, sir.
They were responding to an officer in trouble. They were not responding to a woman who's having mental health issues.
They were responding to an officer in trouble. Yes, sir.
Right. And you know, because we've shown and we've all seen the videos, they were responding to an officer in trouble because Melissa Perez tried to kill him with that hammer.
She came at him with the hammer, threw the candle at him. Yes, sir.
Well, but remember, in the terms of the E-tone, the E-tone went out. It went out before she threw the camera. You remember that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because the reason the E-tone went out, and honestly, I'll have to say this about that dispatcher, because Officer Salinas didn't press his button for the E-tone.
Correct.
He said, "I got one at gunpoint," and that dispatcher immediately pressed the E-tone.
Yes, sir. That's what they do. Yes, sir.
Right, because that's a person, a competent person who is charged with helping and defending police officers as well as dispatching you guys to scenes. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Because she knows, or he knows, I don't know who the dispatcher was, but he or she who is dispatching knows once an officer has communicated that she needs to get people there as soon as possible, right?
Yes, sir.
Now let's talk about why he had her at gunpoint. He did not have her at gunpoint because she threw a candle at him. He had her at gunpoint because she tried to kill him with a hammer.
Right before that, yes, sir. She had the hammer.
Well, you're saying she had the hammer, but we saw what she was doing with it. She was swinging the hammer as she could in the spot where his head just was,
Yes,
right?
sir. You're correct. Yes.
Okay. You would agree that that is a homicidal attack.
If she hits him with that, yes, sir. She can cause serious bodily injury. Yes, sir. Or death. Yes, sir.
Right. And so she is acting, and so as an attack, that is a homicidal attack, is an attack with the intent to kill or seriously hurt.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, because they've left her picture up. Obviously, she didn't look like that, but they've left her picture up, probably to garner sympathy. And I don't say that I don't have sympathy, but I do want to talk about where my sympathies lie is with the people who had to deal with what was going on that night. And that woman on that picture tried to kill a police officer before they arrived. You agree with that?
She swung the hammer at you and said, yes, sir.
Right.
He was coming in their apartment. Yes, sir.
And anybody who looks at that scenario, that situation, is that woman tried to hit that police officer in the head with a hammer, which could seriously injure or kill him.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, may I approach the demonstrator?
Yes.
Yeah. So I just want to memorialize this. So, you would agree, no officer, but especially those three, no officer was responding to a mental health call on this incident.
Yes, it was a disturbance initially.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So anyone who has said or reported or tried to intimate that this was a mental health call, that you would agree that that would not be a correct statement?
It wasn't on the listening to the call. Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Now, you also have Officer Rojas, and we discussed it, did. Now, IDR, woman cut wires, said she owns building, possibly intoxicated. That's what any officer who looked at their MDT would be able to see.
Yes, sir.
Officer Rojas, and all of us agree, Officer Rojas did get a pretty clear indication that she was suffering from mental health issues based upon what she was saying to him. You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
FBI listened to me through the wires. I was kidnapped by the cartel. I'm the daughter of Elvis. Those are the type of things that would get any reasonable officer to say, all right, this is a person suffering from a mental health problem.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, it has been suggested, all the way back with Officer Rojas, that that Officer Rojas knew the most about Melissa Perez because he had talked to her first. And that nobody, Sergeant Flores, Officer Villalobos, Bug, nobody went to her or went to him and said, hey, tell us what you know about Melissa Perez. And so you work here for that. But you would agree with me that if you have information as a police officer, if you have information you think is relevant, it's your job to go to Sergeant Flores and tell him what that is, right?
I agree, sir.
Right, because you wouldn't have Sergeant Flores going around asking anybody, hey, y'all, what information do you have? Are you sure you don't have this? And we know that that's true because the second Officer Villalobos unlocked the door, or thought he did. He went to Sergeant Flores and said, the door's unlocked.
Yes, sir.
And actually, he told other people, and other people are also, what we call passing it back. They're making sure that, okay, everybody is clear that this is now the new situation. Villalobos got the door open, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's what you're supposed to do. So it would have been Rojas's job to go to Sergeant Flores or to go to one of the other two sergeants that were out there. And by the way, the other two sergeants out there, 3 total sergeants, right? 3 people with supervisory capacity over all of the patrol officers there.
Yes, sir. 3 sergeants.
3 sergeants that outranked every other officer out. Okay. 3 sergeants, honestly, that outranked you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So, 3 sergeants. Of all 3 sergeants, there was not one sergeant that went to Flores and said, "Hey, man, I don't know what you should. I don't like this plan. Or I don't know what you're doing." You would agree with that?
We didn't hear it. We don't know what was talked about in that meeting.
Right. But I mean, you also didn't go back to any of these sergeants and say, "Hey, man, did you have a problem with that plan? Did you have an issue? Did you raise an objection to Sergeant Flores? You never talked to them about it."
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. So you have 3 sergeants. Sergeant Flores just being one of the 3, and all 3, as far as you know, were on board with going in, getting her, arresting her, and trying to do it in the way that Sergeant Flores and Officer Villalobos eventually tried to do it.
They didn't impede him, so I don't know for sure.
Well, you know that it'd be your job, or any officer's job, if they think that something is wrong, to go and say something or to try to stop that situation from happening.
You would think so, yes, sir.
Right. So, those other sergeants, are they still at SAPD?
No, sir, they're not.
Okay. Did they leave because of this thing?
As far as I know, no, they retired, sir.
Right. So, retired with honor and dignity. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, the other officers that we talked about, Officer Rojas, he's still at SAPD?
Yes, sir.
All right. Officer Ramos, he's still there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So, Officer Ramos, did you see how he behaved?
I did, sir. Yes.
And you knew that it was deplorable.
Yes, sir.
And you knew that he
I didn't like some of the things he did, sir. Yes.
No, of course not. I don't think any of us did. I mean, he stirred her up. Basically, he's kicking a hornet's nest. Did he go and tell Sergeant Flores or Officer Villalobos, "Hey, by the way, I've been beep, 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 and are you hearing voices?" and doing all that? Did he say that he did any of those things to his sergeant or any other sergeant at the scene?
No, sir.
Right. So they go into that not knowing that what Ramos has been doing, and you agree with that.
I can agree with that. Yes, sir.
And we go back to these. We go back to the 3 separate incidents. I mean, you have these three, I think, yeah, all 3 are still SAPD officers.
They are, sir.
Okay. These 3 are, right? Okay. So, Did you see that first call that Officer Villalobos was on? Did you kind of review that where he was talking and you mentioned the fact that Travis Thompson told him like, hey, we got, Salinas is in trouble, we gotta go to him, right?
I remember that call, yes, sir.
Yeah. And so what he was trying to do was help that guy, like he was talking to him, he was polite to him, right?
He was very polite, sir.
Very
Yep.
polite. And he wasn't shining this light in the guy's face.
No, sir, he wasn't.
No. He was acting and behaving as a person who you would be proud to have in uniform as an SAPD officer.
From everything I've seen from Officer Villalobos, he seemed like a good officer.
Yes.
Very professional officer, yes, sir.
I mean, to be honest, he's a great officer. And he's here, and Officer Ramos is out there on the street, right?
Yes, sir, I understand that, sir.
Yep. So, you know, in talking about, I think what the prosecutor was talking about a little bit, you know, he was talking about the fact that Melissa Perez was reacting when the officers were coming to the window trying to arrest her.
Yes, sir. You saw
Right.
her instant reaction, yes, sir.
Her instant reaction. So, she back off, they back off, she back off. They try to arrest her, they try to go in, she comes in to attack.
That was her pattern of behavior, yes, sir.
So, and it sounds like, what you're saying is she only tried to kill or seriously injure the officers when they were attempting to arrest her.
No, I'm just saying that whenever someone was coming over there when it looked like they might go into the house or try to make an attempt to go in there, that yes, she was gonna come, it was repeated, she did that through the night.
Right, so when Officer Salinas did it, she went and tried to hit him with a hammer.
Yes.
And when Officer Villalobos did it, to unlock the door, I know you say you don't agree with it on body cam, but according to Maria Salinas and Vince Gomez, she tried to hit Officer Villalobos with a hammer.
Again, sir, yes, she came out that window, sir.
And then when they tried the final time, after Officer Villalobos believes the door is unlocked, then that's when she comes again with the hammer.
She's right there at the window and she's telling them don't do it. She's pointing at him, yes, sir.
Right, and then she comes and she breaks the glass, and that's when Bug fires the first 5 shots.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, after she has been fired upon 5 times, she retreats, and then as we saw Mr. Nisbet go through, I would say second by second, but really most of it was in a second or 2, right?
Yes, sir.
So, really kind of half second by half second. But as she retreats, then she comes back, and then we saw, I don't need to go through it again because he went through it pretty comprehensively, exactly where she was when she was shot and what was happening at the time, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, in each of those times, you would agree, you would agree that either you or other officers at the scene believed that she was trying to attack officers with the hammer.
Yes, based on her behavior, that's what she's been doing the whole time, yes, sir.
So it goes back to, so she only tried to kill or seriously injure the officers when they were attempting to arrest her.
When they were trying to go in, yes, sir.
When they were trying to go in?
Try to go arrest her, yes, sir.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Okay, so I kind of wrote that out. Now, I want us all to look at that statement. She only tried to kill or seriously injure the officers when they were attempting to arrest her. Now, with all due respect, that is one of the silliest things that I've ever seen. Because when they are attempting to try to arrest her, and let's just break it out to anybody, no one in the city of San Antonio, in the county of Bexar, in the state of Texas, no one has the right to resist an officer's arrest using force. You would agree with that?
Correct. Unless the force is above what's needed to affect you.
Right, and the force that was being used at the time was Officer Villalobos was using his hand to unlock a door. Officer Salinas was using his body basically just halfway in, so they weren't using any force against her at that time.
Correct, sir.
Right, so especially in this situation, no one has the right to use force against a police officer attempting to arrest him.
Yes,
Right,
sir.
right. So, because the idea that, and the prosecutor said it in his opening statement, the idea that there was this pattern of, well, they're trying to arrest, which is provoking homicidal attacks upon them, or which is bringing upon an attack by Melissa Perez. That is, as you understand the law, that is not, you do not have the right to present a homicidal attack on a police officer because you don't want to be arrested. You would agree with that?
Correct, sir.
Okay. So and I want to go to this door because I'm going to be on the board for a little bit. No, I think it's okay. Just may I approach the demonstrator?
Yes.
Because the prosecutor went through the warrant with you. This is your affidavit. And just as a, I guess just as an aside, you have in your affidavit that I guess that these officers committed the offense of murder by a public servant. And you agree that there's no such charge in the penal code as murder by a public servant, right?
It didn't say, it specifically say it.
Right, I mean, 'cause it says penal code offense 1902, murder by a public servant.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you're a public servant, murder is murder.
Correct, sir.
Okay. But I want to talk about your rationale. So as they went through the affidavit, one of the things is, I mean, where you put it, and you said, well, it's probable cause, did not pose an imminent threat of serious bodily injury or death when she was shot, because the defendants had a wall, a window blocked by a television, and a locked door between them. That is what you said.
Yes, sir.
Wall, window blocked by television, now, I'm looking at your affidavit you gave to the magistrate. Do you see anywhere in your affidavit that you explained to the magistrate that this locked door was actually a door made up of 15 or so panes of glass.
No, I just said patio door.
Right, so this door, right, this door, solid door.
Yes, sir.
Right. If I tried to hit you with a hammer, this door, I wouldn't hurt you.
I'm not gonna have much luck. No, sir.
Right. I won't hit your door if you catch it, but I saw him look over. Yeah, sorry. But if you have a hammer on a door like that, the person on the other side, you agree, they're not gonna be reasonable thinking that you're gonna be able to hurt or kill them, right?
Correct, sir.
But if you have a hammer on a door made of glass, that hammer goes through the glass, you would agree.
It could possibly go through, yes, sir.
It's an important detail.
Yes, sir.
It is a very important detail because we have three things. A wall, a window blocked by a television, and a locked door between them. So let's talk about the window. You have agreed now that the window was not blocked by the television in a way that would prevent her from throwing something through that window or from acting with her own arm and her body through the window and harming an officer. You agreed that the television wasn't blocking that window for her to do that, right?
Yes, sir. We spoke about it yesterday, sir.
Yes, I know. We'll go through some of these things again because what that means is that rationale for why they were not. For why she did not, with her hammer, pose an imminent threat of serious bodily injury. That rationale is out the window because we know that the window was not blocked by the television in a way that would prevent her from throwing something out of it. You would agree?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now we have the wall and we have the locked door. It was not clarified that it was a locked glass door. So, Ben, can I get that video on? I want to talk about the locked door. The idea of this locked door is that you knew, and you knew at the time that you wrote the affidavit that the door was locked, right?
Yes, because he had to kick it in to get in there.
Yes, sir. You had to kick into it.
Yes, sir.
Right. But I want to talk about what happened and what he was doing before he kicked into it, because you have agreed with us that Villalobos reasonably believed that the door was unlocked and because he had unlocked it, right?
Yes, sir. He was telling the sergeant and other people that he thought it was open.
Right. And just a point I want to make, because we see it in his video, when he did what he thought was unlocking. Let's assume that this is kind of the opening of the window here, right? So this is where he's leaning into to come around the door to unlock.
Yes, sir.
You would agree with me that when he leaned in and went around to unlock, that he could see what was on the other side of that wall.
Yes, sir.
Right? Because it's a small wall. I mean, it's probably about that wide. So it's a small wall, but when he went around it, he could see what was on the other side of it.
Yes.
Okay. And you may or may not know that that is important because some experts may say you shouldn't shoot through a wall. However, if you know what is on the other side of the wall and what is not, such as a small child or a disabled adult or a dog even, if you know because you have seen what's on the other side of the wall, right? If you decide later to shoot through that wall, at least you have had that ability to see what's on the other side of it. You would agree with that?
Yes, he knew it was on the other side. Yes, sir.
Right. So the wall behind you could be, there could be anything. Sometimes there are jurors back there. Sometimes there are lawyers back there, or judges, or court reporters.
Yes, sir.
And right now, we don't know what's back there. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Additionally, once Villalobos leans in and sees what's on the other side of the wall, the officers all have ability to see into the room. You would agree with that?
Once he looks over, yes, sir.
Right. So, for instance, if a small child did walk in and park themselves behind the wall, they could see the child come in and
Yes.
get behind the wall. And we know that that didn't happen.
Correct.
So we can safely assume that when Officer Villalobos fired into that wall, he knew what was on the other side of that wall. And what was it?
It was Melissa Perez.
Right, it was
Yes.
Melissa Perez with a
Yes.
hammer,
Yes, sir.
running at his fellow officers at top speed, it looked like, right, from Mr. Nisbet's presentation.
Yes, sir.
And so, are we ready?
They can key it up.
So I want to talk about the locked door, because that locked door, if an officer has a reasonable belief that it is unlocked, then you agree that he can act and should act and respond as if it is unlocked, right?
Yes, he believes it's unlocked and that's why he's acting, yes.
And the way that Officer Villalobos was acting, as we see here, watch him there. Okay. Now, this is important about that knob. You saw that when Officer Villalobos reached in to unlock, he started with the bottom, with the knob part, and then moved up to that first deadbolt, right?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think he tried locking both of them, yes, sir. Unlocking both of them.
And I think with the pictures of that door, it's going to be, Judge, it's going to take me a moment to look through and find it.
Christian, do you happen to know what exhibit numbers they are? It might help. Of the CSI taking pictures of the door.
For 94.
94.
Yes. Actually, 95. Thank you. Judge, may I press the witness?
Yes.
So just showing you states 95, just to refresh you, because
Yes, sir.
there's a lot of pictures. That knob, the door knob, you can see does not have a lock on it.
Yes, sir. Does not.
Okay. So like some doorknobs have a little thing that you can click, and then the knob won't move.
Correct.
Okay. But in this particular setup, she has two deadbolts, one only able to be opened from the inside. And Officer Villalobos was able to unlock the one that could potentially be opened by a key from the outside, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if there's not a lock on that knob, when he turns that knob, you would expect that it turned,
Correct.
right? So what we see here at 02:02:05, what we see here is that Officer Villalobos clearly is acting on his belief that the door is unlocked, right?
Yes, sir.
Because you see him trying the door to see if it's unlocked. Now, can we go forward a little bit? Okay, and we can keep going. So now, and you saw how quickly Bug was able to draw that firearm in real speed. Like that draw happened, like what we kind of saw, it happened within like half a second, right?
Yes, sir.
Officers are trained to draw like that, to draw fast from a holster.
Yes, sir.
So at this point now, she's coming with the hammer. Can we go forward a little bit then? Okay, and so he shot. Now, at the time that the first shots happen, Officer Villalobos has come off the door because he's trying to figure out what's going on and backing up. And you see Sergeant Flores over there in that corner, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, can we go forward a little bit? Okay. So as we watch, you can keep going, thank you. Because it's in slow-mo, so you can kind of see that, okay, so Officer Villalobos, his hand's not on the door now, right?
Correct.
Okay. You can go forward then. Now he's trying it again, right?
Yes.
Stop. Okay. So he's still acting and behaving as if he believes that the door is unlocked. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Right, because an officer who believes that door is locked, he's going to come in with his foot, right? If he's trying to get in. But he's still acting and behaving after these first shots as if he believes the door is unlocked. Can you go forward, Ben? Now, is that Maria Salinas that's drawn her firearm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So she's drawn her weapon. Can we go forward a little bit, please? Okay, now, Officer Villalobos, after trying the handle again, which is going to be turning in his hand because there's not a lock on that handle, right?
Correct.
Okay, but now he's kind of moving to where that wall is. You can see him there.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
Okay. Can you go forward a little bit? Oh. Okay. And you also know that Travis Thompson, you can see him there. He's also, well, I don't know, I guess that's Buck, but Travis Thompson over on the side has also drawn, and you know that, has drawn on Melissa Perez, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you see that Sergeant Flores has placed himself, and you know, one of the things that you said was that one of the things you said was, Judge Mays the well?
Yes.
So when Mr. Nisbet was going through it, and he was talking about how you can see Flores, that, you know, he's kind of getting behind Villalobos, and he's kind of pushing him over where that wall is, right?
He's kind of pushing him away. Yes, sir.
Right. And you said, well, I'm assuming it's so he can get line of sight.
Yes, sir. That's what I said.
He wants to see what the deal is. Now, what he could do is he could he could let Officer Villalobos take the line of sight, and he could get behind the wall, right?
Correct.
But Sergeant Flores was willing, as his sergeant, as Officer Villalobos' sergeant, he's willing to put him behind the wall so that Flores can be in the line of sight, which the line of sight also means the line of attack from the hammer potentially. You agree with that?
Potentially, yes, sir.
Sergeant Flores made that decision in that split second to get Villalobos over here to a bit safer spot, and for him to be the one that is focused on either meeting that attack if it's going to come his way by Melissa Perez. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
That's what you would expect a sergeant to do, is to take the lead and to protect his officers. You would agree with that?
That's what you want a sergeant to do. Yes, sir.
Yes. That's what a good sergeant does. You agree with that?
That's what a good sergeant does.
Yes.
But can I say something? Then why would you force the issue on someone you know is coming with that hammer? To me, it just seems like you're not only putting Melissa in danger, but you're also putting the officers in danger.
Well,
it was
here's
something that they should have considered.
Yeah, I understand you think that, but here's one, you know, because I think as you saw, that when you don't answer the questions the way I'm asking them, it it can get you hurt. You know that. It gets you in trouble as far as on the stand. You realize that. But I will answer your question. The officers who are on that scene, regardless of how they feel personally, they have a duty to make an arrest in a situation where somebody has committed a felony and presents a danger. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Sergeant Flores, as any other sergeant, and really as the two sergeants that were out there, had a duty to make the arrest regardless of whether or not it puts him or other officers in personal danger, right?
We can't consider all factors.
Well, I'm not asking that, but you would agree that they have a duty to make an arrest in those circumstances, regardless of whether or not it presents a danger to them, right?
I think the danger is something that has to be considered, sir.
I agree.
I'm just confused what you're asking.
Well, okay, so here, let me ask you this. If every time there was a danger that was presented, sergeants go, you know what, my guys are going to be in danger, let's not make the arrest. Let's not do what we can to safely make the arrest. If every time they did that for the potential of danger, then, well, I mean, the society that we live in would be pretty nuts. You would agree with that?
I understand that, sir, but the way you're explaining it, just making it like a simple decision, I think that should have been something that was considered before they tried to make that arrest. That's all.
I agree with you. But I agree that it should be considered, and it was considered. We have seen it over and over that they considered it. And one of the things that the state was pointing out to you on freeze frame is that when Officer Villalobos is going over, they can see both her hands over the TV and they're empty, right?
Correct.
Once they see the empty hands, that's when it's go, go, go. Because we talked about it yesterday, talked about it for weeks, it is better to go against an unarmed suspect than it is to go against an armed one. You would agree?
Of course it is, sir.
Safer for everybody involved.
Of course.
Safer for the suspect, right?
course.
Safer for the officers.
Of course.
Officer Villalobos believes the door's unlocked, right?
Yes, sir.
Officer Villalobos believes that he can get to her before she gets the hammer.
He believes that, yes, sir.
He believes that.
Yes.
And you can say, in your office, as Mr. Cifuentes pointed out, in the safety of your office, in your armchair, you can say, well, I don't think he could. But at the time, because he's looking at time, he's looking at distance, and he's doing it in person, right in front of him. You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Half the time on these body cams, you are not even able to see what Melissa Perez is doing there, right?
There's stuff that's missed, yes, sir.
Right. But they can see it because they're standing there watching her, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Sergeant Flores, who has a capable, good officer, who says, look, I think I can get in there and do it and get her down safely while she is unarmed, that is something that he can consider as part of a safety plan to try to make sure that he does his duty by making sure that they arrest this person and also does it safely, right?
Definitely can consider that, yes, sir.
Right, sure. So, at this situation, when this is going on, Ben, can you go forward a little bit? We've passed the first shooting. A little bit further. I guess it's just slow. It's okay.
You wanna switch views to the camera?
Well, let's see. Let's go through and see how far it is with that, 'cause I think he clears it out. Okay. So what we missed, we need to go to Villalobos, please. So at that point though that we stopped on that body cam, you can see that that's at some point Villalobos eventually is kicking the door.
Yes, sir.
And you would agree that it is at the point that he's kicking the door and not still trying the door handle that he realizes that it's locked.
Correct, sir. Yes.
Okay. And so, any time before that, and that point that he is kicking the door, that is a point after he and the other officers have shot and after it has been called out that she's down.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's look at this from his vantage point. Now, here he's talking to her. You agree that he's being polite.
Yes, sir.
He's trying to convince her to come out.
Yes, sir.
He's saying, please, just come out so we don't have to use force. Right?
Correct.
Okay. That's what a reasonable officer should do.
Yes, sir.
Talk to them, try to convince them to do it some other way other than the way that eventually happened. But it was her, you can pause it there, Ben. But it was her refusal to come out that caused them to go in. You would agree with that?
I would agree, yes, sir.
Okay. So it was her choice not to come out that caused them to go in, right?
She's not coming out. Yes, sir. They made
Right.
a decision to go in there. Yes,
And
sir.
they have to do their duty to make the arrest. They can't just, oh well, I guess she's not gonna come out, so we're gonna it's a dereliction of our duty, and just let her do whatever she wants to do. It's not how that works.
That's not how it works, sir.
Okay, can we plug it in? I guess a little slower. Maybe at that half. Thank you. So this is when they tell them to go, because they can see both her hands over that TV, and they're both, and now she's leaving the TV to go and get that hammer. Now, this is when he's trying the door. And obviously this is when he gets moved over, and he gets behind the wall. You can keep going. He's trying the door again. You see Sergeant Flores firing, and you see Officer Villalobos firing through the wall.
Yes, sir.
Right? Okay. Now, could you go a little bit further on again? Sorry. Okay. So, as we move forward,
kicked it. Now he's still trying to figure out what's going on. It's at this point that he figures, see, he was trying that other lock because he said, well, I thought I locked it. And then he goes higher, and then he unlocks the top lock, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And now you can see that that top lock that he did not realize was locked, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, then that's good on that. Thank you. Okay, so when you talked about in your impression that they had a locked door between them, you agreed based on our review of this video that Officer Villalobos, until he kicked that door after she was shot, you agreed that he believed that the door was unlocked.
Yes, I agree.
All right. So now, well, and every other officer, because they had listened to what he had said to them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we're talking about a reasonable belief, even though they may have had what factually was a locked door between them, they reasonably believed they had an unlocked door between them. You would agree with that?
I would agree.
Okay. So now we have the wall. Can we switch it over to the color, please? Now, I want to show you the sequence that Mr. Nisbet went through with Officer Salinas. Picture used in the presentation of the wall. State 7. Yep. Thank you.
No.
Oh. 88. Thank you. Okay. So Mr. Nisbet went through this with Officer Salinas. This is kind of a sequence. So this will start with defendant's 47. So this is when you recognize this because we watched on the body cam. This is when Officer Salinas first attempts to take the screen off and to go in, ostensibly to do what Officer Villalobos was doing and almost successfully did, which is unlock the door.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then 48, we just kind of walk through like where Salinas was. Now in 49, you see that she's swinging that hammer at the spot where Officer Salinas was.
Yes.
Right. So Officer Salinas looking in, just like you see Officer Villalobos, when he looks in and looks over, if he's looking over at that door, obviously, and I'll face the jury with that one. If he's looking over at that door and an attack's coming from here and he's looking here, he won't be able to see it, right?
Yes, quite possibly, yes, sir.
But one of the things that was going on out there, I mean, it may have looked like, oh, they're just chatting with her, but they're talking to her and that has a purpose, right? To keep her distracted. You agree with that?
They're trying to talk to her, trying to get her to come out. Yes, sir.
Get her to come out? But, you know, Alejandro's also told by Sergeant Flores, like, keep talking to her because they're trying to figure out a plan. Either Chernak's going through the back and getting in a fight with her in the hallway, or, you know, they're going to try to come through this, eventually what they believed was an unlocked door. But additionally, the way the officers are all set up in that window and around is even when it was just the three, this would be our second scenario, or our second incident here. Even then, even Rojas, in that scenario, was standing there so that when Salinas reached in and was trying to do what he was trying to do, he wanted to make sure he kept eyes on her.
Yes.
Right? And that's a smart thing to do, because if you know that your officer is going to be in a vulnerable position, you want to be the second set of eyes for that officer, right?
Correct, sir.
It's called watching your six.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what that means is my six right now is back here, behind
Right.
you. And if I can't see, I need my partner here to tell me that, hey, you know, somebody from back here is coming at you with a weapon or could harm you or hurt you, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the reason Salinas is able to get out from that window is because
Rojas is yelling, watch out, which alerts him that she's coming, right?
Yes.
Okay. Had he not had a Rojas and was trying to do this by himself, and he's looking over here to get the door unlocked, she'd come through there and, you know.
Quite possibly, yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, quite possibly kill him.
Could hurt him seriously.
Or seriously injure him. So, as we go through and we see the defendant's 50 has, well, you can't really see that, but okay, you see that hammer coming out there?
Yeah, I can see it, sir.
Okay, that's coming out that window. No obstruction. Now, I want to talk about this wall. Mr. Nisbet pointed it out. That looks like 51. So now you see after that hammer in 52, defendant's 52, she's kind of standing in there after, now Salinas is backed up and he does have her at gunpoint and communicates that over the radio, and that's when the eardrum goes out. Now I want you to look at that picture here in 53. Can you see her? Can you see where she is?
It's like she's behind the wall using it as cover. So
Yes. She is behind the wall and she's using it as cover. Now, when we look at here, now Officer Villalobos wasn't there for that, you would agree?
Yes, sir.
Turn this around. However, you agree that this is States 83. I'm sorry, 88. Thank you, Tom. So, and Tom, in part of his presentation, presented this, but from what we saw with Officer Salinas, that she had used both the television as cover and that wall as cover, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Officer Villalobos, when the shots are fired, and when Sergeant Flores is fired, and Officer Alejandro is fired, and Officer Villalobos is at that wall, that's where he's positioned. You agree that he has stuck his head through that window and he knows that there's nothing else other than what he will see moving to that wall, right?
Yes. He has a memory of what he saw there. Yes, sir.
You're right. And everybody else is watching it, so they know nobody else has come or done anything like that, right? I mean, they haven't come and parked themselves behind that wall.
Correct, sir.
So, her having demonstrated that she will use that wall as cover, you agree that there is no way for Officer Villalobos to know, with all this firing going on, there's no way for him to know if she was hit with any of these rounds.
Correct. He doesn't know.
You can't know.
He doesn't know.
You don't know until you know.
Correct.
He had just seen Officer Alejandro fire 5 rounds and miss her, right?
Correct.
Okay, so let's talk about what that wall is. If she's using that wall as cover, I'll demonstrate it with this. This is the wall. If I am standing here, inside, this is the wall. What I have here to my right is a window, basically a door full of glass window panes. You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What I have here to my left is an open window and Bug's head sticking up over the railing right in front of that window.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you would agree that if I have, where's the hammer? I have it over here, thank you. You would agree. I'm standing here. And I have not been hit with any of these rounds from Sergeant Flores or Officer Alejandro or Officer Villalobos. Well, Villalobos hadn't fired yet, but Alejandro and Sergeant Flores. Agree, if I'm standing here, I do have the option of coming around here to the glass door where Sergeant Flores is, or have the option of coming around here to the open window where Officer Alejandro is. You would agree?
I would agree, sir.
So if I'm sitting here planning an attack and Villalobos fires through that wall, what we see on Exhibit 88, where those rounds are, where they are placed on somebody
if she had not been hit, and we didn't know, nobody knew that she'd been hit at that point. If she had not been hit, those rounds are placed center mass on the woman standing in a wall like that, waiting to plan another attack. You'd agree with that?
It makes sense, sir, yes.
Right, because you look at her, I mean, it's gonna be like right here at the top of her back, based on her height, based on everything else, be at the top of her back. And he placed those pretty tight in the wall at the last place that he saw her go, right?
Yes, sir.
So, if you have seen a person coming from a place that you have a visual on her, and then she's behind the wall, waiting to come around here, or waiting to come around here, because she has used this wall as cover to help her in her attacks, and to help her retreat from officer attacks, right?
Correct.
So if you have that, and Officer Villalobos knows that, he has a duty to shoot through that wall if he believes and has a reasonable belief that she could come around here and get him, or she could come around there and get him.
If he believes there's a threat, yes, sir.
Right. Now, wall don't matter, because if that's the last place he saw her, then that's the place he has to stop the threat. Right?
Yes, sir.
Now, the reason he has not been indicted for murder, even though you have him arrested for it, is because we do know that she was not standing there and she did not have the hammer, that she had been shot, and that she was leaned up against the wall at a lower place. Right?
Correct.
So we know that those 3 rounds that we see in the wall would have gone over her head because she had already been shot.
Yes, sir.
And missed her. Right?
Yes, sir.
And as I talked about before, despite the fact that Officer Villalobos did not cause her death, you walked a warrant for murder, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, when you were doing that warrant, did you have anybody from the DA's office helping you do that warrant?
No, sir. I did not.
Did you consult with anybody from the DA's office at any time during this incident?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you know if Sergeant or Captain Van Geffen consulted with the DA's office at the time on the morning of the incident?
No, sir, I did not.
All right. So you have no knowledge whatsoever. So you wrote this warrant by yourself. Is that right?
With the assistance of Detective Wars at the time.
Detective, now Sergeant Morris.
Yes, sir.
But you would agree with me that even though, and I will give you this, she could not have put a hammer through that wall. That would be like this wall, be like this solid door. She definitely could put a hammer through the window, we know that. And she definitely could put a hammer into the glass panes, either causing glass to shatter or to get her arm out of that window or to throw the hammer through it. She could do those things on the door that they believed was unlocked, and she could get it out there. But the wall, with the way she was using the wall, was covered. You would agree with me?
Yes, sir.
With her.
Yes, sir.
And so that was a tool that she had used to get away from Officer Salinas when Officer Salinas was pointing a gun at her, right?
Yes, sir. You can see that on the podcast.
Right. And so now, her standing there, if she were, it's also a place from which she can launch an attack. You agree with that?
It's possible, sir. Yes, sir.
So, of the 3 things, the only thing that she has that she couldn't have put a hammer through was being used by her as a tool to either cover herself or through which a reasonable person could believe, if she were still not hit, she was using it to potentially launch an attack, right?
Yes, sir. Quite possibly, yes, sir.
So, additionally, we saw with that locked door from that wall. Let's go back. May I go back to the demonstrative?
Yes.
Because one of the things we saw with Officer Villalobos is he had to reach across that wall. I mean, actually, they were saying at the scene, they were like, "Yeah, how'd you even get that unlocked? You got long arms, right?"
He's tall, yes, sir.
He's tall and got long arms. He did have to put a good portion of his body inside though to do that, right?
Yes, he did.
And we talked about yesterday that if Officer Salinas and Officer Gomez were correct, He was risking his life to go around there and do that because,
It was risky, yes, sir.
right, because if she hits him in the head with a hammer, you know, his baby doesn't have a dad, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So, if she's standing here, her arms are not as long as Officer Villalobos', you would agree.
Yes, sir.
But she's got much shorter distance to cover. To unlock the door while still behind cover, right?
Correct.
So she can stand at that wall and click the other lock that she knows is locked, right?
It's quite possible.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So at that point, she's got it unlocked. She's got the hammer. Sergeant Flores is standing right outside that door. We see how fast she can move. She's unlocked it. Just like Officer Villalobos, action beats reaction. What he was expecting and hoping is that his action by getting in the door and getting there is going to beat her reaction by trying to figure out that he's doing that before she can get to the hammer. You would agree with that?
That was part of the plan, yes, sir.
Right. So, she's got this thing unlocked. Come around, and she can go right through that door and out and into his head. She could.
I mean, it didn't happen that way, but we just don't know.
It didn't because she wasn't standing here, because she did get shot before she could hurt anybody, right?
Yes.
Okay. But somebody in that position, and the only one I'm trying to make, has easy access to that lock and has easy access to that door and can go right out that door.
Yeah. You can assume that, yes, sir.
Okay. So the things that you mentioned and the things that you looked at about why you believe that it was not reasonable for them to believe that they were in danger, we basically are left with a wall. Because you acknowledge that it's not fair for you to use your knowledge that the door was locked against them if they reasonably believed it was unlocked, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right, and so, you know, going back and, you know, Mr. Nesbitt talked to you about apparent danger, and for instance, your gun, I know for a fact that you're wearing a gun right now, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
And it is loaded in the same manner as these officers' gun was loaded, which means you have a round in every part of the magazine is full, and you have a round in your chamber right now.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. That's because that's my policy and is part of your uniform. Even here testifying, you as a police officer are required to have that gun and to wear it in case that you need to defend and protect yourself.
Yes, sir.
Right. And you're required to have it in that way.
Yes, the way you described it, sir.
Right. So, I know that. And I know that you wouldn't come here or anywhere with an unloaded gun as a police officer. But, if you had drawn the gun on me, and it happened to be unloaded, yeah, I mean, did you draw it? It happens to be unloaded. Or anyone draws a gun on it, happens to be unloaded. But I believe it's loaded. And I shoot. The factual basis of the fact that it was unloaded would not be held as a circumstance against me, because I could reasonably believe that it was loaded. You agree with that?
I agree.
So even somebody drawing an unloaded gun and pointing it, the factual basis for that, well, the fact is that they are shooting me with that gun.
Exactly, yes, sir.
Right. But I would have every reason to believe that the person drawing that unloaded firearm on me was going to shoot me with that gun, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So now, imagine if, as one of the bases for why you said that they didn't reasonably believe that they were in danger was trade the hammer for the gun. And imagine that one of the bases was she was not a threat because the gun was unloaded. Right? You agree that that would not be a fair way to analyze their action, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, that changing the facts in the scenario is not relevant.
I'm giving him a hypothetical that's it goes exactly on point to why saying that the door was locked, and that is a reason and a basis for his opinion and why he got the warrant. And I can explain to the court.
If you put in there that factually the gun was unloaded, so therefore they weren't in any danger, that is not a fair way to assess that, because it is reasonable for them to believe that they are in danger. That's the only point I'm trying to make with this.
All right, you can ask that question.
All right. So factually, if we just change the fact a little bit, and she was pointing an unloaded gun at them, if you put in their arrest warrant for murder, that one of your considerations for why it wasn't reasonable is that the gun was unloaded and therefore not a threat, that would not be a fair way to assess their behavior. You agree with that?
Of course not, sir.
Right. But here you put the door was locked, even though they reasonably believed that it was unlocked. Right?
I put the door was locked because it was locked, that's why.
It was locked.
Yes.
But that's just like saying I put the gun was unloaded because it was unloaded. Right?
I just put it in there because it was locked, that's all.
It was locked.
Yes, sir.
But don't you believe that they deserve the fair consideration of you at least acknowledging to the magistrate that they believed that the door was unlocked?
And they believed it, yes, sir.
And you know that they believed it based on their actions, right? Because I'm going through it, I don't see anywhere in here where you said that the officers had a reasonable belief that the door was unlocked when they fired on it.
I didn't put that in there, no, sir.
You didn't.
No, sir.
And so when we were talking about exculpatory evidence means evidence that would tend to prove and show that these officers were reasonable in this situation, right?
Yes, sir.
That would be evidence that would tend to prove and show that they were reasonable, because at least they think that the door's unlocked and she can come through it relatively quickly, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you didn't put that in there. Is it because you didn't review the body cams enough to know that they all believed that the door was unlocked?
I just didn't put it in there, sir.
But my question really is, did you review the body cams enough to know that they reasonably believed that the door was unlocked?
I reviewed what I thought I needed to look at, sir.
Right. And are you willing to now say that maybe you could have reviewed a little bit more before walking the warrant within, basically, or deciding to get a warrant within 12 hours of the incident?
Man, I believe I had probable cause, sir.
I know, but if this thing were to repeat itself, because I kind of want to know, just while you're sitting here on the stand, if this thing were to repeat itself, do you think that you might actually give consideration to the officers and actually do an investigation before you arrested them and had them arrested for murder? Do you think you might do that if this situation were to happen tomorrow and you were the officer assigned?
Objection causes speculation, argumentative.
I think they deserve an answer to that question.
All right, you can rephrase it and you could break it down.
Yes, Your Honor. Do you think that if tomorrow officers were involved in a shooting, that you might try to look at the evidence before you walk the warrant on them for murder? You might want to take more than 12 hours and review some of these things before you had them arrested and put on the news all over the country and their mugshots for murder. Do you think you might do that in the future, knowing what you have experienced here today?
There are things I could do differently, yes, sir.
Okay. I'll pass.
No questions, Your Honor?
Yes.
And you said no questions, right?
Yes.
No questions, Judge, thank you.
All right. If you don't mind gathering whatever's up there, put it up on the ledge for the court reporter. And you're excused. All right, Steve.
Judge, we probably need to approach, if they're gonna do another witness, we have a hearing that we need to conduct.
All right, members of the jury, we're going to take up a matter outside your presence because it's 5:13. I'm going to go ahead and let y'all go. Come back tomorrow, 9:15. I know that there was an occasion where at least one of you needed to leave a little bit earlier. We'll go from 9:15 till about 4 tomorrow.
In addition, there's another matter besides the hearing that we want to take up outside the presence of the jury. I'm just wondering, given that additional matter, whether you might want to consider that.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
All right. I'll instruct the jury to be here at 9:15, and then we'll get you on as quick as we're ready. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
All right, for the jury. Please be seated.
I just wasn't sure, Judge, if they were gonna call Mr. Joyner, and I had asked Mr. Noonan about that, he wasn't sure, so if they are, I just wanted to make sure that we had this 7:05 hearing outside the jury's presence, that's all, Judge. Not calling in front of the jury, then excuse them, and then, you know, make a big old commotion in front of them.
In addition, if Mr. Joyner is the last witness, or if court doesn't permit him to testify, then we need to make a motion for obstruction of justice.
And then, Your Honor, we had that motion limiting that we had, also asked that any expert they're gonna call has to be, trial hearing, in front of the court to determine, whether or not they can testify to certain things. I filed that today, I think you have a copy with it, I gave you some cases for it, with this motion limiting regarding expert testimony, that, establishes that the defendant's state of mind at the time of the offense, is inadmissible, subject of expert testimony. There may be other things an expert can testify to, but they can't testify to, the subject of the, any of the defendant's reasonable belief or their intent or condition of mind. And so we'd just like that any expert they're gonna call, that we have a chance to hear their testimony first outside the presence of the jury to see if it establishes the, their qualifications, reliability, and relevance.
Well, they're entitled to 7:05 also, Judge, right?
In the same way that we would.
Yeah.
So it's just in the same way.
And one additional issue, Your Honor, if Mr. Joyner is going to testify, I want to get into the record evidence of Mr. Noonan in the pretrial hearing telling his court that they weren't going to use Mr. Joyner because his opinion was wrong. That is clearly an admission of a party opponent, and I want that on the record. I think the jury's entitled to hear that. Once again, he's speaking out both sides of his mouth.
If you wanted to introduce Mr. Joyner's report, we agree.
I said if you put him on.
No, I said if you wanted, you've been wanting to offer it.
I said if
You
you
wanna
want to put him on?
Go right ahead. We can do it either way.
I said if you're going to put him on. You going to put him on?
We may put him on if you
Okay,
like.
well then I'll do it if you put him on.
Okay, you'll put a statement in?
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is.
I said, we'll put your opinion that he's wrong. We'll put that in. How about that?
Well, call me as a witness. I'll call you as a witness.
Why would I call him if he's wrong?
You don't want me as a witness, David.
Anyway, Your Honor, it's the state's position right now that we're prepared to rest, okay? And then we'd like to have these hearings outside the presence of the jury. If they intend to call an expert tomorrow, that we at least do that before the jury comes in the room. And then review the cases and the motion that we have, so that we know whether or not the parameters of the witness's testimony.
So is the state resting or not?
Yeah, we are prepared to rest in front of the jury tomorrow.
Judge, could we have a little bit of time so we could present our motion for directed verdict tomorrow morning?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll bring the jury in, and then if the state rests at that point, then the state will rest, and I'll let the jury out, and then we'll go ahead and go over that.
Thank you, Judge.
So is that it then? That's it?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. I'll see you tomorrow, 9:15.
9:15.